tonight, the closer they believe this is to a global catastrophe due to a nuclear war or a climate change. At the same conference, a doomsday clock, if you didn't notice, it was moved from 6 minutes to 3 minutes to midnight. Richard Somerville said at this conference, human influence on this climate system is clear. Each of the last 3 decades has been successively warmer than any preceding on record. This is the end of civilization as we know it. Scientists have said that we have entered into a new geological epoch called the Anthropocene. The Anthropocene is defined as a particular period of time and marked by distinctive features and events. This began with the Industrial Revolution in the early 1900s and is going on to this present day. It was the Industrial Revolution that gave birth to many of the environmental changes to water and air pollution that we see today. It was the emergence of great factories that gave rise to the changes in our environment with large volumes of industrial chemical discharges and untreated human waste into our water and into the air. These human activities have pushed the earth well beyond its natural cycles. So what are some of the things that have been recorded regarding these issues? NASA and the National Atmospheric Administration labeled the year 2000 as the hottest year on record and is stamped as the worst year on record for disasters. The polar ice cap has been reduced more in the last 10 years than the previous 100. Chunks of ice are breaking away from the ice cap comparable to the size of the island of Manhattan, New York. In the past decade, we have seen some of the most deadly and costly devastations from hurricanes such as Katrina and Sandy. We continue to see these weather extremes such as record numbers of tornadoes, floods, and this winter with record snows and temperatures. In January of 2010, the island of Haiti was struck with a hurricane which killed more than 220,000 people. 130,000 were left homeless. That's more people than live here in the city of Wilmington. And they still suffer the effects from that today. A prominent evangelist said they claimed that this disaster struck the people because they swore a pact with the devil and they needed to have a turning to God. So when we see these disasters strike, people cry out and they say, everything that happens is God's will, and they feel that God causes the human suffering, or at least that He's indifferent to it. Is God really responsible? Were these acts of God? So these events just described were predicted in the Bible, although they are not acts of God. Jesus foretold these events, and his disciples asked him, what will be the sign of your presence and the conclusion of the system of things? Let's read that in the 24th chapter of Matthew, verses 6 through 8. And there it reads, you are going to hear of wars and reports of wars. See that you are not alarmed, for these things must take place, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, for there will be food shortages and earthquakes in one place after another. All these things are a beginning of the pangs of distress. When we think of wars, since 1990, globally, there have been approximately 130 wars and that are or have been fought or are still being fought now. For the first time ever, the United States has been in wars for 13 straight years. What about earthquakes? Excuse me a second. I found this online, and what this is, and it represents the significance and the increase of earthquakes. I don't know if you all see it. This chart is a U.S. government chart, and it tells us the earthquakes with a magnitude of 6 to 8, which are significant, or what we call great earthquakes. This is the year 1900. This is the year 2008. And along here, this is about a line of 10 earthquakes per year during that time. And as we can see from the year 2000, it spikes significantly to 40. So we can see that what Matthew said in the 24th chapter there about earthquakes. The World Health Organization reports that globally hunger now afflicts about 1 billion people worldwide and kills 5 million children each year. The WHO also says that hunger kills more people every year than AIDS, malaria, and tuberculosis combined. Does this mean that God causes these events to happen? Absolutely not. Jehovah, being all-knowing, says in Isaiah 42:9, "Now I am declaring new things. Before they spring up, I tell you about them." So we can see that many of these disasters are the results of men. For instance, third world populations are forced to overcultivate, deforest, and generally overuse the land, making it more prone to floods and droughts. Farmers are now able to plow vast tracts of land that ecologists say should not have been plowed up in the first place. These soils, when they're dry, create dust bowls. It's only a matter of time, says the National Geographic. Fingers get sticky up there. So on a global basis, developers are ignoring the ecological consequences of deforestation, which destroys well-established water cycles and leads to water shortages. Professor Hanks, director of the Institute of Natural Resources, says there is much more to this loss of trees than a loss of raw material for energy and for building. Additionally, some say man's tinkering with the environment through nuclear testing has altered global weather patterns. Clearly, we can see then that the way that people live make themselves vulnerable and are often responsible for these disasters and with heavy losses of life and property. God is not the cause of these calamities. So then, what is an act of God? Why does the Bible then speak of God sending floodwaters, fire and sulfur, and so on to destroy the wicked? The encyclopedia says, an act of God is an accident that results without the interference of man. All genuine acts of God are righteous and purposeful. Deuteronomy 32 tells us, perfect is his activity, for all his ways are justice. A God of faithfulness, no injustice, righteous and upright is he. In order to be called an act of God, it must meet 3 criteria. The first of which is they are always in harmony with God's purpose that includes not indiscriminately destroying the righteous with the unrighteous. Second, an act of God is preceded with a warning from God. And third, an act of God will have divine instructions to obedience once for survival. So then let us consider 2 examples of true acts of God. The first one being the Noachian flood. Genesis 6 describes the conditions on the earth at that time. In verse 5 it says, consequently, Jehovah saw that man's wickedness was great on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of his heart was only bad all the time. First, God saw this, and he decided to eliminate this wickedness in harmony with his purpose. So he wiped the humans off the earth by bringing upon the earth a global disaster. So why was the world so wicked at this time? Wicked angels had materialized as men, producing Nephilim. Who were the Nephilim? They were violent sons who were the children of materialized angels of the daughters of men. Jehovah had regretted that he had made men on earth, and this saddened his heart. However, Jehovah saw that Noah was righteous and a man, and he took note of his family's integrity and of Noah as well. Besides them, Jehovah saw no other people on the earth that were worth saving. Therefore, God promised them safety during the upcoming cataclysm. This didn't happen in practice. Did God give them a warning? Certainly he did. God inspired Peter to write 2 Peter 5. He did not refrain from punishing an ancient world, but kept Noah, a preacher of righteousness, safe with seven others when he brought a flood upon a world of ungodly people. The people undoubtedly heard Noah preach about the coming destruction. They saw him build this ark. They realized that he was building this huge structure that must have had some kind of purpose. It took him 40 years to build it. The people scoffed at him. They said, "What water? What flood?" It had yet to rain on the earth at that particular time. Jesus himself told us that they were warned because he said at Matthew 24:36, For as they were in those days before the flood, eating and drinking, men marrying, and women being given marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark. And they took no note until the flood came and swept them all away. So the presence of the Son of Man will be. Were there divine instructions for survival? Of course. Jehovah was instructed to build the ark and then to enter onto it with Jehovah's command. Then Jehovah closed the door. I need a drink here, just a moment. A second example of a true act of God was the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. Conditions were very bad in these two cities. So Jehovah decided that he would examine and destroy the two cities. In chapter 18 of Genesis, it said, The outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is indeed great, and their sin is very heavy. I will go down to see whether they are acting according to the outcry that has reached me, and if not, I can get to know it. We will see that all three criteria, God's criteria, were met in this instance as well. God determined that he had a valid reason to destroy the two cities, and he would not destroy the righteous with the wicked. The account goes on here with Abraham questioning Jehovah about this, and Abraham asked Jehovah, will you really sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Suppose there are 50 righteous men within the city. Will you sweep them away and not pardon the place for the sake of 50 righteous who are inside it? The discussion goes on with Abraham and Jehovah, and the number is successively dropped to 10. And that account says, Abraham said to Jehovah, Jehovah, please, suppose only 10 are found there. Jehovah answered, I will not destroy it for the sake of 10. When Jehovah finished speaking with Abraham, Abraham went on his way. Did he give them a warning? Certainly. God sent his two angels to meet with Lot. God's messenger said to Lot, do you have anyone else here? Sons-in-law, your sons, your daughters, and all your people in the city? Bring them out of this place. Lot tried to warn his prospective sons-in-law. get up out of this place because Jehovah will destroy it, the city. His sons-in-law